I want to talk about cladding. I want to talk about the bill that was passed in Parliament yesterday, despite a minor Tory rebellion, and whether or not you think it's fair. If like me, you are facing a hefty bill to replace cladding, we weren't asked whether we wanted it replaced. We weren't asked anything. It was just done. And it's been going on for almost 2 years now in my flat complex. There are lots of blocks of flats, and they're all being changed. I think that the local hotel, the Novotel, has also changed as well. I mean, this is a huge undertaking, and they literally have to drill each tile off individually. And the sound of drills now it's a bit like living under the flight path. I don't even notice it now. It's as soon as daylight breaks, they start drilling, and they're doing it at weekends now. So if that sound of drilling is familiar to you, you're probably one of those people who's facing a bill. So what we were hoping was, and I was very pleased to see, and you might say, oh, it's selfish you talking about this, but there's a lot of people like me, and I'd like to hear from you if you're in the same boat as me. What do you think of what they voted through yesterday? Because the government the House of Lords keeps asking for amendments, bless them, saying you basically leaseholders and tenants as well, that lets people own flats. It's the tenants who'll have to pay, not the homeowner. I mean, it's just disgraceful, really. People can't sell their flats. They're just stuck there completely. There was a flat I saw in London that was half the price it should be. Half the price, a flat. But because the cladding has to be removed, no one was buying it, No one was buying it. Surely you'd make money on something like that. But anyway, so flats are going for much cheaper than they normally would be. So yesterday, the government pushed through, or Parliament pushed through, a new act, the Fire Safety Act, it's called. And it turns out that the fallout from Grenfell is casting a wide net around the country. I don't know how many people are going to be affected by this, but it's hundreds of thousands of people. These are new laws that could leave the owners of flats facing bills for fire safety measures. Grenfell Tower survivors' organisations and bereaved relatives have called it indefensible. It's the Fire Safety Act. It's aimed at making homes safer following the 2017 blaze. 72 people died, of course, at Grenfell. But a push to include more financial protections for the leaseholders, not the freeholders, but the leaseholders, not the people who own the bricks and mortar, not the management companies, not the builders, but people like me who have a mortgage on a flat. We weren't consulted, but we've had this thing done, and we now have to pay for it. But there seem to be various loopholes. If you live in a block of flats, I think it's 5 stories or higher, then it'll be paid for you. But if you're lower than that, because that's the height that a fireman's ladder could go to or something, I think, fire officers, then you are liable. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Why they have to make that distinction, I've no idea. So the government has made a £5 billion fund available to remove cladding, which is all well and good, but it's going to get nowhere near it. The Priti Patel's the Home Secretary. She said the government was paying for remedial work to thousands of buildings around the country. She said the Act would actually help to save lives by changing some of these awful regulations and guidelines that existed previously. I'm always a little bit loath to do this story because it does feel like I'm doing it for personal reasons. But I'd like to know whether or not anyone else is in the same boat. I know there are hundreds of thousands of people who are. Can you let us know what your situation is? What do you understand the new rules to be? Are you going to have yours paid for? Has the cladding been changed? Are you expecting your cladding to be changed? How long has it taken? How disruptive has it been? Priti Patel said that the Act would actually help save lives by changing some of these awful regulations and guidelines that existed previously. Because after the Grenfell fire, thousands of blocks of flats were found to be covered in this similar cladding. Is it our fault? Well, not really. Who should pay? Other defects were also discovered. Some leaseholders are facing huge bills to pay for protective systems, not just to remove the cladding, but to have fire safety methods installed, like fire breaks, balconies, safer doors, sprinkler systems. I don't think Grenfell had any of those, did they? Ministers say a loan scheme will ensure costs are capped at £50 a month for safety works, and that residents in the tallest tower blocks in England will not have to pay to have cladding removed. So how does this work? Tell us how you understand it. Are you liable? Are you breathing a sigh of relief because you're not liable, because you live in a block that's less than, say, 5 stories high? I think it's 5 stories high. And what about this loan scheme? How's that going to work? Give me a call now and you'll get through. 0345 60 60 973 is the number to ring. If you want to text, it's 84850. And if you want to tweet, you can do so at LBC. It appears to me, but again, I don't want to hear from me much about it. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from other people talking about this. I could talk about this all day, but I think the only way to deal with it is to sort of put it to the back of your mind and not think about it and not worry about it. But I can totally understand some people, particularly first-time buyers. I was listening to someone yesterday who was saying that it was their first flat, and now they're bankrupt because of all this. And they're back off the housing ladder, and it's just been an absolute nightmare for them. So, and it's not just in London. Manchester's got a huge number of flats with this cladding on it. Were you aware that you were living in a very dangerous building? 0345 60 60 973. Leaseholders have described being trapped in homes they cannot sell. They say their lives are on hold potentially for years because lenders won't offer mortgages until the cladding is removed. I particularly want to hear from people who've tried to sell their house, or their flat rather, and because of the cladding issue you've had to lower the price, or you've been unable to buy it. Maybe somebody has picked up a real bargain for a flat, something that was much cheaper than it should be because it's still got the cladding on. Why have you managed to do that? Are you not worried that that will actually be an unsaleable building at some point? 0345 6060 973 is the number to ring. Ring now, you'll get through. Alicia says, excuse me, we're part of Enfield Borough, that's just north of Tottenham, isn't it? And our cladding has been off our building for nearly 3 years. We have no insulation. We have a small child. Our windows leak when it rains due to having no protection against weather changes. What, they've taken off the cladding but they haven't replaced it? We have pigeons nesting in the sections between the floors. The council haven't given any real information as to when the building works will begin. Our only hope is to move. I'd love to hear drills rather than nothing. It's fun living in these conditions. Sorry, it's no fun living in these conditions with small children. Absolutely. I wonder whether or not you are in one of these so-called death traps. I must admit, if I was given the choice as to whether I wanted the cladding removed or whatever, I'd probably say no, leave it as. You know, it's horrific what happened. We all know that. We all think that. It's horrific what happened at Grenfell. But, you know, the rest of are we all living in these death traps or not? I don't know. I wouldn't have. But anyway, it's been taken out of our hands. Now, the vote yesterday did actually suffer from a few rebel Tories, but not enough. As I say, the House of Lords keeps voting it down, saying that the asking for amendments, which basically say no leaseholders will have to pay. But the MPs just don't listen to the House of Lords. They just literally just do what they want and vote for these things. I don't know. I was a bit surprised that it passed through. Some Conservative MPs argued the government should meet all the costs up front and then recoup them from property developers. Obviously, I'm going to say that. But, you know, obviously I'm going to be biased because I'm in a block of flats that needs something that's doing to it. We thought our building was safe, says this texter here, just in the cusp of 18 metres and nothing from the landlord to say it's an issue. Until recently, someone in the flat block has tried to sell and the landlord has said they can't cover Sainsbury's too. Yeah, I guess this is the thing. And also, lenders won't give people a mortgage for a flat that's got cladding on it that needs to be removed. And this is the problem, isn't it? It's hard enough buying and selling a property. God, I hated it. It's so ridiculously long-winded, complicated, and the lawyers just send you so much information that you never read. Pages and pages of this thing, because they have to do. So what what do you feel about the fact that this bill has gone through? What do you understand is happening with your block of flats? As I say, I want to hear from anybody who's in a block where you've been told the cladding has to be removed or has been removed. Who's paying for it? That's what I'd like to know. And what do you make of the decision yesterday by MPs to get this fire safety bill through? The Grenfell United group, now that is set up after the fire in West London. They said they were deeply disappointed that ministers have broken their promises to leaseholders who've done absolutely nothing wrong. They described the government's position as indefensible, saying it was a grave injustice that many innocent leaseholders will be financially ruined over fire safety issues that were not of their own making, and it accused ministers of letting those responsible continue to get off scot-free. So, yeah, if you're suffering, you probably were the same as me. I suddenly got a letter saying we're changing the cladding and we're going to have to add it to your management service charge, which goes up every year anyway. They're always running at a loss, it seems, our management company. So is this happening to you? And if it is, what have you been told about who's paying for it? Colin says, cladding issue is no different from asbestos, lead pipes or subsidence issues. Not the government's responsibility to bail out the owners, nor is removal of cladding actually the whole issue. There were many more contributory factors. The cladding only contributed to the spread of the fire. Cladding won't prevent fire. What are you saying, Colin, that we should all have to pay? And you don't understand that? Yeah? So we're talking about the cladding and the safety bill that was passed by MPs. There were a few Tory rebels, but it essentially says that you can take out a loan, 50 quid a month to pay back the cladding removal fees or all the safety precautions that will be installed into the block of flats. I'm wondering whether or not you've ended up having to fork out here. Scott says, I work in the insurance industry. The whole cladding and fire safety issues are a serious topic at the moment amongst us. Insurers will end up picking up a huge section of the total costs. Terry's in Edinburgh. He said, I don't know why any of the owners of these flats with the problem of the cladding have to pay for it. Quite right. Themselves. You buy a flat, you should buy one that you at least assume will be safe. You pay a survey to make sure everything's okay. I just don't understand it at all. It's a tricky argument, to be honest, and nobody wants to pay for obvious reasons. Yeah, there can only be one reason why the tenants in flats are being made to pay for cladding removal, says Tracy, rather than the property developers and freeholders. The tenants are less important to the Tories. Ooh. It will be political expediency. Well, I wouldn't put it past them. Property developers are more likely to be Tory donors, there we go again, or have Tory politicians with interests in these companies. A few bankrupt, ruined individuals will just be collateral damage to them. It's called capitalism. Remember that when you next vote, said Tracy in Yorkshire. Clive is in Poole, in Dorset. Are you in one of these blocks?
Yes, absolutely. I think listening to you, I'm in very much the same position as you, actually.
Yeah.
What happened was obviously all this legal stuff has gone through for the House of Commons, and I think for a long time I kind of ignored it, but then the bill came through for the service charge around Christmas time, and one of the lines on the service charge bill was for that 20,000. And basically we live in a block of flats that had that 100 apartments, and there are many elderly people in there on their own as well, some young people that have got mortgages up the hill as well, so people in different positions, and obviously that's been put on hold because I think we applied for some of the funds, and I think, as I understand it, it actually just pays for the cladding, so it doesn't pay for everything. So there's an awful lot of fire detection stuff and obviously under regulation.
Yeah.
And we have an excellent residents group that are trying to obviously look into it, appeal to it, get obviously legal advice and everything else.
Right. But
I can just sort of see at the end of the day, if the government doesn't change its way, there's a lot of people that are going to have to fund something. And obviously it makes their flat worthless until
absolutely
something happens.
Well, my management company is hinting, I don't think they're going to do it, but they are actually hinting that all our balconies are going to have to be replaced because they're made out of wood. And I'm thinking, are you seriously saying that any building that's got wood in it is going to have to be... That's every building in the country, isn't it? Every building starts with wood.
Yes. Well, we're lucky, actually, because the balconies here are like a concrete base, so we haven't got that same problem. But the way I look at it is that it's put people in a very difficult position, and this government can fund and put a lot of money away in different areas. But as I think one of your previous callers said, it's from the Grenfell fire that all this has come about. And as you say, Priti Patel has said that it's going to save a lot of people. But what it doesn't sort of say is that it's about welfare of people as well. And in an unexpected deal where, they're asked to pay for something, I should imagine if people take out their loan from the government, then that's going to be a charge against the property in the sense that if they have to sell the property, they're going to have to clear the loan, or they're going to have to pass the loan on to another leaseholder.
So how many floors are there in your block?
Well, this is the... I've been told that because we've got 5 floors, and I think it's above 18 metres. But I don't think that the fund or the money the government are going to give is going to cover absolutely everything.
But do you know why they've chosen that arbitrary 18 metres? I'm told it's something to do with ladders from the fire officers, but I don't know. Do you know?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's to do with the restrictions on the fire safety, and I'm not sure what's going to happen for buildings under that, whether they're going to have to pay for everything or it's going to be paid for. But the way I see it is that, we are, as leaseholders, at the bottom of the pecking order because, you've got the builders, original builders, that some of them, including our one, have been taken over by somebody else.
Yeah.
And also you've got the building insurance, you've got the freeholder, the landholder that you pay the rent to, and yet then you've got the leaseholder, and it's the leaseholder that's got to fit the bill. And I'm sure that through collaboration of the different, there can be some agreement.
Well, I think from having done this, thank you for your call, Clive. I think from what I've gathered, doing phone-ins on this and speaking to lawyers about this, is that the leaseholders, the lawyers I've spoken to, do think that they've got a case to argue. So I would be amazed if one of these groups, and there are lots of these anti-cladding groups or anti-payment groups who are saying, that's not fair. And there is a legal argument saying that they are not culpable for this and they shouldn't be liable to pay for it either. Thank you very much for getting in touch, everyone who has.